Hi, my name is Karen Peterson. I'm going to do a demonstration for you on Oxalic DRIBBLE. It's a treatment method for Varroa mites. I'm going to be doing it in two parts. The first part is going to be whether or not this is the right treatment for you, so just an understanding of what it does. And secondly, what you need to get ready. So this is going to be part one. Part two is going to be actually showing you how to mix it and how to apply it, but we're quite a bit early for that, so that will be later on. So today, first of all, let's talk about whether or not it's the right treatment for you. Oxalic acid is one of the so-called organic treatments for Varroa mites. It's already found in our food, so that's why it's considered an organic one. However, it doesn't work as well as the miticides. It has lower efficacy. It works well in an integrated pest management system where you're using a whole bunch of different methods to keep your mite levels down. We actually use a bunch of different methods to keep our mite levels down so that we only have to use a miticide once every couple of years. That way we're reducing resistance in the miticides or resistance in the mites for the miticides. We're hoping to retain those as a tool in our toolbox for longer. We're also learning how to use the other methods for when there is resistance in those to those miticides, so that we already know how to keep our Varroa mites down using other methods. So this is one that we have, it's a method that we've used somewhere between 5 and 10 years. What you need to know is that it works on the phoretic mites, so the mites that are on the bees, but not the mites that are in the brood. So therefore, it's a method that you need to do when there's no brood. So consequently, we usually do this method just as we're wrapping the bees in October. After the feeding is all done, the brood is done, they are just about to go into winter, and that's when we use this method. So if your mite levels are high, you've done your sampling this fall and your mite levels are high, this is not your method. The winter bees will already be raised with problems if this is what you decide to treat with. This is a method that you're actually preparing for next spring to keep your mite levels down. So maybe you treated this spring, your mite levels aren't that high right now, and so you're going to treat again this fall with Oxalic to keep your mite levels down for next spring. The other thing to pay attention to, Oxalic can be done in either a vapor method or a dribble method. We use the dribble method because it's safer for humans, and it's just plain easier for us. However, we do everything in singles. We don't use doubles at all. And when you're using doubles and you use an oxalic drizzle, they talk about separating the brood boxes and doing a shot both above the top brood box and into the middle brood or the bottom brood box. So that's another consideration that you might want to take into account. And then there's some research being done that this method is being used about once a week while there is still brood in the hive. I haven't tried that, and as I said, there's still research being done. What I've read is this can be quite hard on adult bees, and so I'm not totally certain that I want to try that on bees going into the winter. We do it once on the bees going into the winter, and that has worked quite well for us. Okay, so what do you need? If you have decided that you want to do an oxalic dribble, what do you need? First of all, you need the safety gear. Oxalic as a powder is quite dangerous for breathing in, and so you want a ventilator. The great thing about getting a ventilator is it might seem expensive, but a ventilator can also be used treating formic acid. It can actually even be used with some of the miticides that they talk about. You're not supposed to breathe those in too. So this is, I actually consider, quite a good thing to have along. Eye protection is another thing that I would recommend, particularly when you're mixing the oxalic, but even when you're administering it, you don't in any way want to get any of this splashed into your eyes. Rubber gloves, and these you need as a beekeeper no matter what. Every miticide treatment that I know of uses rubber gloves, whether it be the organic or whether it be the miticides. So gloves are something that you want to protect yourself with. When we mix the oxalic, we use a plastic pail. I actually use a bigger pail than this, and then I pour it into a smaller pail as I go around the yard administering. But if you're only doing a few hives, I would just mix it in a small pail like this. I use a plastic spoon to take, this is what an oxalic container looks like. For us to take the oxalic powder out of the container to put onto the scale, I use a plastic spoon as opposed to a metal one. Oxalic can eat into metal, and so just a normal plastic throwaway spoon. And the oxalic acid itself, you can get it in smaller containers. I get it from Bee Made. I get the biggest container that they have, but you can get it in smaller ones. A wooden stir stick, which basically is just a piece of wood for stirring it up. We use a little scale. Again, depending on how much you're making is how precise your scale needs to be. Because we're treating several hundred hives, we don't need the most precise scale. If you're only treating a few hives, you want to know exactly how many grams of oxalic you're treating with. So how precise your scale is depends on scale, on size. We also use a kettle. I just have a normal kettle. When I am mixing oxalic acid, I use a kettle. I don't have any distilled water, but you want to use distilled water. One of the mistakes that people make when they're making oxalic is not using distilled water, and then the oxalic and the minerals bond and it doesn't actually work. So you want to make sure you get distilled water. That's absolutely key. I also don't have white sugar here, but white sugar is just a classic kitchen, you can go to your kitchen and get it. So you're going to use that. And last but not least, you want to get about a 60 milliliter veterinary syringe. These are usually a couple of bucks. I find I need to buy one every time I do a treatment, like every season that I do a treatment. Once you've used them, they don't last, they don't administer smoothly, but they're only a couple of dollars, and it's by far the cheapest way that I've found to administer the oxalic drizzle, and it's easy. You're going to be using, it's 50 cc's is what you need when you're treating a hive, so you want to get a syringe that's at least the 50 cc.